Hi, my name is Roy Canterbury. I'm the host today on Archery Talk 101, and we have a guest on the line. We're going to talk to him for a while. His initials are same as mine, RC and RC. And so we're going to have a pair of RCs talking today.
There you go, RC squared, RC squared.
Yeah. So welcome to the show.
Thank
How
you.
about if you introduce yourself and tell us a little something about you?
All right. Well, my name is Royce Carnley. I've been bow hunting, since I was 14 or 15, 46 now. So quite a few years. Been guiding a lot of those years. I guide now at Mesquite Tree Ranch down in South Texas. Have guided all the way from Kansas straight down all the way down to South Texas at one point or another. Here about probably the last 10 years, turkey hunting has become my passion, but I've always real close behind turkey is bow hunting for whitetails. I've guided for whitetails much longer than I have for turkey. So I've had a lot of experiences and got to see a lot of cool things with my hunters, and in the process of guiding, something that I really took a interest to, not so much to push a product, but like all the scents and stuff that we as bow hunters get into. Of course, scent is such a huge game. I have experimented with just about every scent out there. Again, not for purposes of a product, pushing a product or anything, but just for trying to provide the best hunts I can for my hunters. So I'm somewhat of a scent guru, whether it be food scents, cover scents, deer scents. I've experimented with all of them at one time or another. So that was kind of my passion as far as the whitetail side of things. As far as the turkey stuff, I got into it, the more stuff that it created and doors opened. We've never had a really good, springtime pattern for South Texas. And so I got tired of looking for one. So I created my own pattern called MTRcamo. It's been going on for about 4 years now. It was starting to grow legs, and now it's kind of settled down in the off season. So hopefully we can build that up in the future.
Yeah, that's I'm going to kind of search for it. Yeah, if they was interested in camo pattern, where would they go to
MTRcamo.com.
MTR camo.com.
Yep. And those are the initials.
Right.
Yeah, those are the initials of Mesquite Tree Ranch. And that's kind of where the idea started. So I didn't want to lose that connection. So that's why we went with MTRcamo. Because Mesquite Tree Ranch camo is kind of a mouthful.
Yeah. MTRcamo.com. Okay, I must be not functioning something right. It didn't pop up.
Uh-oh.
That's interesting. We'll have to figure that out. And
yeah, well, if there's something wrong with the website, I'll look into that. We do have a Facebook page as well at MTRcamo. So,
oh, okay. We'll take a look at that. And MTRcamo product services. Looks like there is a picture on there. So let's just show the audience what it looks like. Hopefully this is the right one. Yeah, it's got mtrcamo.com say, let's see if we can open that up. No, it's error not going to your website. You have to check that out.
Well, I'll have to look into that. I'm glad you said something.
Yeah.
Look into that. I've had a bunch of issues with Wix, is who I went through.
Yeah.
It's been a learning experience because I'm not a clothing guy. I'm a hunter, and I was just addressing a need. So it's been a real learning experience dealing with clothes and websites and all that good stuff.
Yeah, I think that's the Facebook page, right?
That's it. Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah, we wanted to. So we're on Facebook. .com/MTRcamo, and that is your link to your Facebook page. So if they want to get a hold of you there, and we've got a lot of photos and stuff out here. We won't go through all of them, but we've got pictures out here and a lot of stuff. It's pretty cool.
Oh yeah, it's going to be saturated with turkey.
Yeah. Well, that's okay, you know.
That was
It
that
looks
was the main design, and those calls right there, I actually make those. Those are cane yelpers.
okay. So let's describe them a little bit because those listening to the audio can't see. They
Okay.
can only hear.
Oh, gotcha. The cane yelpers, I had a guy bring me a cane yelper as a gift, and so I started using them. It's a suction call, which is different from all the other turkey calls, and it provides a little bit different sound. And the more I used it, the more I realized there's something special about them. It's a call that doesn't sound quite as turkey as you're playing it as, say, like a mouth call or something else. But if
Right.
you get away 50 to 100 yards away from it, there's nothing that sounds more turkey than these calls. And I've just had great success. Again, as a guide, I get to experiment with animals and get their reactions out in the field. And there's just something a little bit more special about these calls than all the other ones that I've used. And that's why I started making them. I started making them 2 years ago, and I just made call number 347 a couple of weeks ago. So they've been pretty good. They're extremely affordable. I don't make them super fancy like some of the great call makers out there just to keep the cost down. I sell them for $25 a piece, and like I said, it's the best call that I got, and that's not because I make it. You know, if you talk to anybody that goes out hunting with me, I use that call more than any other call in my bag. So,
Yeah.
and my job is to get results, so that's why I started making them.
Well, that's why you pay a guide,
That's
because
right. That's
you do
right.
all the legwork.
That's right.
Now, do you have a call handy? You can demonstrate it, what it sounds like?
Hold on. Matter of fact, I'll get one that's autographed by Hank Parker. Hold on.
Cool. Yeah, that'd be neat to kind of hear what they sound like. They're kind of interesting. It looks like a cane and then got some wrapping around and then looks like a little kind of clearish white tube on there. And when Royce gets back, we'll have him demonstrate it. And
Okay. Yeah.
there we
This
go.
one right here.
Let's go ahead and stop the share and
Okay.
see if we can, those watching can see what you're doing a little bit easier.
Yeah, here is a call. I got the pleasure. Hank Parker came down and hunted with us at the ranch this past spring, and I got to call in a bird for him. So, as a child, kid growing up watching him on TNN and all that stuff,
Yeah.
crazy to think I would call something in for Hank Parker. But I made this call right here. That is a feather from the bird that he shot, and then he autographed the back of it.
Cool.
So I made this call right here to auction off for a children's home benefit. I'm going to put that back online probably after the voting and everything, so that it doesn't get caught up in all that mess. But
Yeah.
they have been pretty special. I'll run it just real quick for you.
You'll have to get a little closer to the phone. I can't hear it. Yeah, for some reason it's not picking it up.
Oh, it's not?
Uh-uh.
I wanted to play it away because usually it's too loud.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I
Can you
couldn't
hear?
hear it at all.
But can you hear me talking?
Yeah, I can hear you talking. I just couldn't
That's
hear it for
crazy.
some reason.
It's not picking that up.
No, it's not picking it up.
That is weird because it's loud.
Yeah.
Let
Well,
me
what we
try
might
this
have
one.
to do is take a little video of you doing it, on your
Yeah.
phone or
Okay.
something, and then upload it to the Archery Talk 101 Facebook group so we can hear what
Okay.
it sounds like.
Yeah, I can do
We'll
that.
put it in there. Speaking of that, that's one of the places you can watch this video is in the Archery Talk 101 Facebook group. Go ahead and join that.
Okay.
We have a lot of archers out there. We've got like 1,400 archers out there from all over the world.
Yeah.
In fact, there's some I have to Google map it because I can't figure out where it's at. I've never heard of the place,
Right.
all over the world, and archers at all kinds of different levels, from, those just starting out to Olympic archers and archers
Right.
that have just been shooting for just a few months or a few years to a few decades.
Right.
I've been shooting. I started in the 60s. So, I've been shooting, almost 60 years now.
Quite a while. Yeah.
Yeah. So I've been shooting for a while. And anyway, when I first started, it was wood or fiberglass bows.
Mhm.
and wood or aluminum arrows, and you had choices of feathers or feathers.
Yep. No, I can't imagine the change that guys like UFC. Yeah, I mean, granted, I'm no spring chicken either, but the just the advancements in archery from just like the last 20 years has been insane to me.
Oh
Uh,
yeah,
how it's grown, it's crazy.
yeah, it's crazy. Um, but I want to get back in that. What got you started in archery?
You know, I think the biggest draw to me in archery was just because when I still got old enough, I started hunting, old enough when I could walk and never even knew archery existed. Nobody in my family hunted, bow hunted, or at all. So our deer season always started in November and the first weekend in November. And as I got older, you start to learn things and realize there was a whole month I was missing out on. I'm
Yeah.
man, I gotta learn to bow hunt. And my uncle had an old Banshee, Barnett Banshee was what the bow that he gave me to use. And just when you finally get your mechanics down and release that perfect arrow, it's like hitting a home run in baseball. And as soon as I felt that one right arrow, I was like, man, I got to do this. So it took me, I want to say 5 or 6 years before I ever got my first deer with a bow. I learned the hard way. The very first bow hunt I went on to try and kill a buck, I went with my stepbrother-in-law, I guess would be the correct term. But he had a stand set up, so he dropped me off on just what is a knoll on the edge of a peanut field. And of course, he knew about scent and all that stuff, and so we tried to control it, whatever he told me to do. Well, my mistake is I went in coveralls, and I was just kneeling on the ground, but I was up, kind of elevated on that knoll, and little did I know that wearing those coveralls was going to cost me a giant deer.
Oh
And
yeah.
so I'm sitting there just on my knees, and wouldn't you know it, here comes a giant rack. All I could see is his rack, and then he gets right in front of me, and I was, there he was at 8-10 yards at the most. So I wait till he gets a little bit past me, and then I try to draw back, and those coveralls, because I sit on my knees, wouldn't let me extend any further.
Oh,
Uh, so I had to slightly stand up. Of course, he started trotting, and I shot just under him. I had to watch him run across that giant field for forever with that giant rack. And of course, I never got an opportunity at another big buck like that for several years. But looking back now, I enjoy those lessons because you won't ever make those mistakes again. And
no.
that's the lessons I want my kids to go through, those hard earned ones, because that's the best way to learn versus, and I'm guilty of it too. I wanted my kids I find myself wanting my kids to skip through that heartache because I want them to, be successful so bad that I don't want them to go through all that. But it really is a teaching and learning process that I think every hunter should go through because you never forget those.
Yeah. I kind of started off like you did, when it was a good day if I seen deer prints in the dirt.
Right. Yep.
Yeah, that was a good day.
Yep.
Okay, there are deer in the area. You didn't know how to find them because I had nobody to teach me anything. I had to
Right.
learn on my own. And then it got to where, okay, I seen a deer. It might be running through a field on the way in or way home, but I seen a deer. It's like,
Right.
okay, that's next step up. I seen a deer. And then you start getting a little better, and then when you have areas that hold a lot of deer, then you expect to see deer. You may not get shots every time, but
Right.
yeah, I think I was 5 years before I took my first shot.
Yep. I was about the same. My first one was a doe. Um, of course, where I grew up hunting, if you saw horns, of course, we didn't have any restrictions back then. If you saw horns, you better shoot it because you don't see very many bucks. Now it's a totally different deal. Everybody does management and the herd's
Yeah.
all good and everything. But back then, if you saw horns, you better take a shot at one because you may not see another one the rest of the season. But my first deer was a doe, and I just thought it was the coolest thing, and I was all the way into it 100% ever since then.
Yeah,
And
my
then,
first one was a buck, a small buck, but it was a buck. I don't
yeah,
specifically go out to shoot bucks. I
right,
go out to shoot does.
Yep.
If one comes by, I won't pass up on it, you know.
That's about right. But where I really grew like into bow hunting, I grew about the same time, when I started really paying attention to my bow, my arrows, and all that stuff. It was about the same time I really got into scents. And that was about the time, I can't remember exactly what year it was, about when Khmer deer came out. You remember that? Have you ever used
Oh
Khmer?
yeah.
Um, Back when that first started coming out and I used it, and then deer just went crazy over it. And that's kind of when my obsession with scents and trying to like make a spot a little bit better if I could. That's kind of where my obsession with all this scent stuff came about. And then once I got into guiding again, I was in the Army for 4 years, and once I got out, I went back into guiding and just have dedicated everything to try and provide better hunts. And that's when I really started experimenting and actually sitting out there and watching deer's reactions to everything, and doing tests on all the cover scents, that all the archers say is a gimmick, and all that good stuff. There's stuff out there that is better than others for sure. And there's stuff out there that, people call a gimmick, but it increases your chance of success for sure. I can prove that over and over and over again. And then everybody goes out there and thinks it's a gimmick, just to get your money. But there's a lot of stuff out there that's not, for sure.
Yeah.
I would debate, since it's probably one thing on the whitetail side, I would debate anybody about. I've tested it just about everywhere in every situation and for many, many years, how to apply it, when to use it and all that stuff. So it's a lot of fun learning that stuff, how the whitetails react to all that different stuff.
Yeah, it's kind of weird when you're walking in, you're not using any scent or anything, and you're walking in, you climb up your tree, you're sitting up there, and you see these deer come walking in, follow your footstep and look up at the tree up to you. They
Yep.
followed your footprints all the way up to the tree to you.
Yep.
And you can't move because if you do, you might as well move the tree stand because
Yep.
if they catch you in a tree once, you got to move.
They get you down. They'll go downwind first every time.
Yeah, they'll do that, and I use scent lock.
Yeah.
All the time I use that, and I got plenty of stuff with that. When the rep that rep for him was getting out of it when I had my archery store, and I bought all of his stuff. So most of my stuff says sample inside of it because it was in samples.
Yeah. Well, that's the best kind. Samples are always the best kind. That's the kind you don't have to pay for much.
Yeah, and I definitely didn't pay full price for him because he got a good price. He gave it to me for a good price because what's he going to do with, several $100s worth of equipment that he's not going to use? And so I sold a bunch of it and I kept a bunch of it, that fit me and I liked. So yeah, it's kind of interesting, all the different stuff you can go on, scents and everything else. I use a lot of stuff, just to keep myself with not having a lot of scent. And
right. Well, and it's something, I've had this conversation with many people. I've actually wrote a blog about it. And I've had this conversation with a lot of people, and it's something that we can control. We spend so much money on everything else. The scent products is a fraction of the money that we spend doing everything else, food, licenses, whatever. And to an extent, it works. I just wish the industry would quit calling them scent eliminators, because they're really scent reducers, and they really do reduce your scent. And the way I look at it is, I've been in, and I don't have the monopoly on this. Just about every hunter that hunts every season is the same way. You've been in so many different situations, whether that wind's blowing, swirling, whatever. I truly believe, because I've tested a bunch of different brands on different subjects. I've tested on like raccoon urine, on sweaty boot smells and stuff, and just with my nose I can tell that it reduces the smell. Right, it's nothing compared to the animals, obviously, but I can tell that it actually works. Now, I don't think there's a product on the market that will eliminate everything, But it does reduce it. And if I can reduce the amount of scent particles, I'm no scientist, but if I know I can reduce it a little bit, then I'm going to do it. Especially as a guide now, because I rarely get to hunt for myself, and me and my family love deer meat. So I put myself in a position to, with the most success possible that I can. At least that's what's in my control. And if I can one time reduce the amount of my odor and the wind might swirl it around that deer at that particular hunt, it might only work that one hunt, but I'm going to do it just
Right.
because I want the best chance of success possible. Always playing the wind is number one option, right?
Right.
But how many times do the deer not read the script? And especially those old does with fawns, they'll always, whether you're hunting a funnel, a feeder, a food source, a small spot, they always come downwind. So, I believe in doing everything possible that's in my control to up my success, even if it doesn't work all the time. And I've learned that there are scent products, and all three of the scent phases, the cover scents, the deer scents, and food scents, that makes your hunt better on a somewhat consistent basis. You can go, like I said, I wrote a blog on it. You could write a book about all these
Oh yeah.
stuff that I've gone through. And again, I don't have a monopoly on this. I know there's other people that are just insane about it as I am, but it cracks me up when you got guys say all those scent products are a gimmick, when they'll spray their clothes or everything out, but they'll forget about their bow, forget about their backpacks, camera gear nowadays. Everybody's filming everything and forget to wipe all that down when they're touching it with their hands back at camp. Their hands have had food and all kinds of different stuff.
Yeah.
It's stuff that they overlook, and all it takes is a little bitty piece of scent on it to cost you your hunt. So that's why I don't think you could ever totally eliminate your scent, but you can definitely reduce it to where it might just be the difference between success and not success. So I don't take shortcuts. So I do everything I can that's in my control.
Yeah, I know there's a lot of different ways of doing it. You've got the kind of the charcoal based ones,
Oh
and
yeah.
I had a guy on podcast. I'm drawing a blank right now, but his scent stuff actually chemically altered the scent.
Oh really?
Yeah, it was a chemical process that did it,
Yeah.
and that was kind of interesting. I'll have to see if
It's
I can
got to
find
involve
which podcast
charcoal.
that was.
I think that charcoal is the ones that does that.
Yeah, this one was actually, it wasn't a charcoal base. It was actually a chemical, something in the formula that he made chemically would alter the
Oh really?
smells. Yeah. I wish I remembered more
I
about
want
it.
to
I
say
don't.
there's one that involves silver in it too that did something like that, but I can't remember the name of that. What that was. It
Yeah. Oh,
can
there's so many of them out there.
There
Um,
is.
there are lots of different options, and uh, here where I'm at, there was a guy that worked for Berkeley as a chemist,
Yeah.
and he developed something called Descent. And that you take a marker and spray it on cardboard and spray it, and the scent's gone. And it worked really good. And it started getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And he finally had to shut it down because Berkeley said, you either can do that or work for us.
Right.
And they knew he was doing it. It's
Yeah.
just it finally started getting big enough, and they didn't want nothing to do with it.
Right.
They're so I still got some left, but he had 2 scent, one without the earth scent in it, one with earth scent in it. And of course, after a while, the earth scent will kind of start dissipating, because I don't know what he did, but it was pretty good stuff, and it worked good, I thought anyway.
Yep.
There's so many options out there, and a lot of it is just, when I'd take a shower like in dial soap, and then I would use the hunter's soap to clean off,
Right.
and then I would use the scent lock on top of there, and anything I can eliminate my scent. And then
Right.
I avoided putting any scents down, because now then if I put the scent down, I have it on my fingers.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so now what do? You know, you put rubber gloves on and throw the gloves down, or how do you get the scent? Because now the scent's on you and it's attracting them to where you're at, and now it's on you and they're going to attract you up to where you're at.
Yeah,
So it's just hopefully what you put down is stronger than what's on you, but
right.
still.
Well, best case scenario, the deer stays upwind of you. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I remember the
Um,
first time I used a scent control suit. It was actually a British chem suit.
mhm.
And we was out turkey hunting, and it was early season, so it was hot, and you know, morning wasn't too bad. Afternoon, going out for afternoon, and I go out and I sit in the stand, and that I don't remember if there's deer season as well, but we was out there, and it was hot, so I put a t-shirt on because that stuff's kind of scratchy, and I just had undershorts on, and I had the pants
Oh,
on, a jacket on, and I'm sweating. I'm
yeah.
sweating it's like almost like dripping wet. And I figured when I pulled that top off, it was going to smell, it was going to stink. As I'm pulling it off, it smelled like distilled water.
Oh,
It
really?
eliminated all the scent that I was generating by sweating. It's like, cool, these do work.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
sportsman's guides, you know, the British chem suits, the American ones were way heavier. You know,
Oh,
those
yeah.
you really
Yeah.
couldn't they're way heavier. The British
Oh,
ones were real
yeah.
thin.
I have a suit. My brother was in the military too, and he still has all his old stuff when he deployed to Iraq, and it's very similar. It's heavy, heavy stuff, carbon lined and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to wear those.
No, no, they're hot. But the British one's kind of thin, but it's still it doesn't allow
Just
anything to breathe
yeah,
because it's to trap, you know, if it breathes, then chemicals can get in.
yeah,
You know, it's designed to keep chemicals out. So worse good at chemicals going, you know, from coming in, it keeps them going out. So kind of works both ways. But now
yeah,
I've got the scent lock stuff, and uh, you know, it's a pretty nice stuff. It's a little bit higher grade.
yeah. It's I've heard nothing but good things about scent lock. Um, but yeah, and it's another thing too. It's I've always told people that one of the best things, whether it's fishing industry, hunting industry, is matching the hatch, and that also goes with cover scents and stuff. I've heard a bunch of people say they'll smoke their clothes out. Man, if you smell like smoke in the places I hunt, you'll never see a deer. uh, you
Yeah.
know, and people swear by it that do it. And most of those people that I know are like in the southeast, where they do a lot of prescribed burns, very regular, or they live close to urban areas. So it's it's interesting when and where all that stuff works.
Yeah. Looks like I got disconnected. He'll join back in. But yeah, it's kind of interesting how different areas does different things. Um, you know, what works in one area don't work in another. There's places that we had some public places that we hunt, and they're used to people all the time. So you don't have to be quite as good with your scent, but you still need to pay attention to it because you know they're going to smell something that's different. uh, that's always a thing to look at too, is you know, what is it normal if you're in an area that there's hardly ever any people. You know, smelling a human is going to be one of those things that is strange to them. So looks like he's coming back on. He just got disconnected for some, lost connection.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it happens, and sometimes you move. I've done that, moved
Yep.
around. It's like, ah, I just
Well, it was
did something I didn't.
I got a phone call, so I tried to turn it off, and I think it turned off the video instead. So
Oh, yeah.
yeah,
Well, that's all right. We can do it. I was just talking about, you know, different areas. If you're an area, we got a public area that I used to hunt, and it's a camping area, so people are all the time.
right. Yeah.
You know, so they're
See,
used
I
to
could
people.
see smoking your clothes out would work in something like that for sure.
Yeah, I still went as set free as I can.
Yep.
Yeah, even though
That's the
because
way I do. And another thing that I try to do is if you get a chance to do it early enough, just try to, and the weather cooperates, go hang your clothes in some of the natural vegetation that's around there, so that it kind of absorbs some of those scents that's already around those woods.
Yeah.
That's another something that I firmly believe in.
I know that one place I was hunting, my tree stand was right next to an evergreen tree.
Mm,
And what I do is after I climbed
those are
in,
the
I grab a
best.
couple of leaves and I
Yep.
just kind of smash them. I get a little oil on me and it puts the scent out
Yep.
there. There's my cover scent,
Evergreens are
something
the
natural
best.
that's
I
there.
love
Yeah.
evergreens. Yep.
And it's from a tree that's right there.
And they make great places just to cut out a little bow spot. I've done that a bunch of times with
Yeah.
evergreens. I don't know how many times I used to make pallet blinds, and I take 3 or 4 pallets, kind of cut out one of them, and then just stuff evergreens and stuff in the pallets, and you disappear. They make great
Yeah.
ground blinds.
Yeah. And they'll last for a long time.
Yep. Oh yeah. Yep. I love them. But I would say, as far as scents go, um, if I break it down, like I say, I break it down into 3 categories: cover scents, deer scents, and food scents. I would say probably cover scents is probably the least important, even though it's probably the most tedious process of the 3, because you always want the wind in your favor as much as you can help it. But
Yeah.
that's something that we do, like taking that extra step where it might make the difference in one deer hunt. And to me, that's worth it if it makes a difference in one deer, especially if it's the right deer,
Yeah.
So that's why I go through it. But the other 2, you absolutely, with deer scents and food scents, you can absolutely make a spot better, very consistently. I've done a lot of experimenting with both deer scents and food scents. There's one. I'll just do the food first, because there's one formula that has worked for me everywhere I've done it, whether it be Kansas, North Texas, or South Texas. Um, the best thing I found is, I believe it's Nature's Own who makes it, but the buck jam, the people who make
Right.
the buck jam, they make a sweet corn molasses. It's supposed to be like a mineral lick. It comes in a pretty big jug. You can buy it at like Academy. Sometimes Walmart carries it. You can buy a pretty big jug for like 10, 15 bucks. They've gone up some the last few years, but usually they're $9.99 at Academy. And I'll take that and some imitation vanilla, squirt bottle. So I'll pour just a little bit of each, vanilla and that mineral lick, the sweet corn jam. Pour it in a spray bottle and fill the rest up with water. And if it's legal in your state, spray it either over corn or just over vegetation. I've sprayed it over vegetation. And so down at the ranch, of course, we got corn feeders all over, because if you don't feed down there, your neighbors are.
Yeah.
So I did an experiment one time, and we have senderos. Those are just long roads cut in the South Texas brush. And so I corned one road with the truck feeder. It just drive along and spreads the corn out. And then I corned another sendero, but I only sprayed that stuff down one sendero. And so I went and parked the truck, got in the stand, and just wanted to see what would happen. Not one single deer went to the sendero that I didn't spray. Every deer went to the sendero that I sprayed, which I kind of figured was going to happen, because I've had such good success with it. And I've also had deer walk right across corn on the ground that they could put in their mouth just to smell that stuff. And I got it on video. I put it kind of in a little scent blaster thing up on a bush, and they literally walked past corn that was on the ground that they could eat just to go smell this, this scent. It's been that special for many years in all different kinds of places. So that's probably my biggest takeaway on the food scents. I've experimented with a bunch, but that right there is a very well kept. I don't know if it's a secret, but every bow stand I will do that too, because it enhances all my bow stands when we have bow hunters. It's been awesome, and there's something about it that bucks like. I don't know if it's the vanilla or what, but there's something special about vanilla and deer. I think every deer hunter knows that. I think that's why a nose jammer was created. It's kind of got a vanilla scent to kind of confuse the buck's nostrils, but they like it. They are attracted to vanilla for some reason. But when you mix that corn and that vanilla smell, there's something special about it. So if you can do that legally in your state, it's a cheap way to cover a lot of ground. I used to use Khmer deer. Khmer deer absolutely works, but it gets expensive.
Yeah.
So when I started guiding, like now the ranch I got on is 9,000 acres. I can't buy that much Khmer deer. So I needed something cheap that I could spread out over a lot of acreage. So I can go buy 2 of those jugs for, $10 a piece, and that'll last me all year, and I can cover every spot that I need to cover with it, because you just need a little bit, and half a bottle of the 69-cent vanilla. I think it's Baker's that you can buy at Walmart.
Yeah.
Very cheap, but man, it's the best stuff that I've used as far as really an attractant scent, because they really like it. As far as the deer scents, number one is always the doe and estrus, right? When rut hits. I have learned, I've heard a bunch, even the old timers that have been around forever and seen everything. I've had not really arguments, but disagreements about, so many people say, you don't want to leave that scent out there overnight, and because you don't want them showing up when you're not there. I 100% disagree with that. I can't stress that enough. I want, especially doe and estrus, I want it out there as attracting as many deer as possible when I'm there, when I'm not there. And because if you only put it out when you're hunting it, the deer already has to be somewhat in the area right then when you're hunting it. If you if you leave the scent out there, and doe and estrus is the best to do this with, at food scents as well, but if you leave it out there, you're going to get, some of them bucks that are traveling mostly at night, they're going to come across it. And if you can go back, if your schedule allows you to, and if you can go back and refresh that spot, because that deer is going to come back and check that spot again if he doesn't find the real thing, right? He's going to come back, okay, I'm going to try to find that doe, I'm going to go back to that spot. And if you go back and refresh that spot, it's going to drive him crazy. The only thing that's going to take him away is the real thing. He will hang around. Right. He may not stand right there, but he's going to hang around looking for that doe. And the only thing, like I said, the only reason he's going to leave that area until he finds that doe is the real thing. And we've had so much better success, especially if you can refresh it like 2 days in a row and then hunt the following days after that. It's just, they get insane almost when they can't find that doe that's putting out that doe and estrus. And when you refresh it, I think it just drives them nuts. It drives them crazy. They can't find that doe. So the application in that has been probably more important in the doe and estrus than what brand you use. I think if you just make sure that the company or brand that you use puts the right amount of estrogen levels in their product, which almost all of them test them nowadays, almost any brand's going to work. Like I said, the application of doe and estrus and how you use it is way more important than what brand you use, in my opinion. But all that stuff, I could go on forever about all that stuff.
Yeah. There's so much to do. And when I first started, it was just, you go climbing a tree, you didn't know any better. And I started out,
Right.
climbing a tree, and no safety belt or nothing. And then it's like,
right.
Oh, yeah, something on it. So I tie a rope around my waist, and
yep. Well, now it's almost become, it's almost become law, like a seatbelt. I'm surprised.
Yeah.
I'm surprised states haven't, started enforcing that. And I figure it's only a matter of time. I don't know if there's any state out there that actually enforces that if they catch you in a tree without a safety harness on, but I bet it's coming.
Yeah, unfortunately, the guy can put their fingers in everything, and
yeah,
if you don't want a safety belt, well,
yep,
don't. It's like,
to be honest, I'm surprised that it hasn't been a law. Like I said, it's another way for them to, to make money and write a ticket. But then, that's going to be a problem where, then game wardens going to be wanting to walk through the woods while people are hunting. And I think that's probably the biggest reason why it hasn't become a rule or a law.
Right. Because
Then
now he's come walking through and
nobody
now he's
wants,
disturbing my hunt. Yeah.
right. And the game wardens don't want to do that either. I mean, to
No.
be honest, they want to spot from afar and catch somebody doing it, and to catch somebody in a deer stand without a safety harness, they're going to have to be right there. And yeah, that's going down a whole nother rat hole that I don't
Yeah.
think either the hunter or the game warden want to go down. But I am
No.
surprised it hasn't been made a law in some of the states anyway.
Well, all your new tree stands come with a safety harness
Right.
of some kind.
Mm.
Generally it's just barely viable if you can figure out how to put them on, because they're not set up very well to be real useful. But
Right.
they do come with one, so they can't say you don't have one.
Right. Yep. Yeah.
Yeah,
We
I had
don't
a
we
long
don't
time
need
just
very.
a belt is what I had
Oh
for a
yeah.
long time.
Yep. We don't need them very often in South Texas. We have some big trees up here where I live, but down at the ranch, if you're 10 feet off the ground, you may be in clear blue skies.
Yeah, you're on one of the big tripod stands.
Yeah, we got a few big trees that are tall, but they're down in a bottom kind of thing. So it actually makes them level just with the tops of the mesquites. Every now and then we'll get a giant mesquite that goes, might hit 20 feet at the very top. But as far as hanging a stand in, we might, you might be, there might be a few you can actually be 8 to 10 feet off the ground, but most are in between that 6 and 10 foot range where your stand is. tripods
Yeah,
are tripods and ground blinds are really where it's at in South Texas. So we don't have to worry about falling out too much.
yeah, you're doing more ground and just barely
Yeah.
elevated. We're up here, we got trees you can get in 20, 30 feet.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
That's crazy.
I was 20 feet up in the tree when I shot my first deer.
Wow.
I had to get that high to get over the brush to get to the trail that the deer were going to walk it on.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was made for a 40-yard shot.
Wow. Yeah. I wouldn't know what to do 20 to 30 feet up in a tree.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting when shooting from elevated
A little different.
platforms,
Yeah.
shooting down. Yeah, it's completely different. We've talked about that several times on the show, but um, and we've talked about you guiding. What got you started in guiding?
You know what? It was basically just kind of like what all the other good old boys do. They'll take their buddy hunting or whatever, and it kind of started out as that. And then I think it was in Kansas the first taste of it. I had a buddy that had permission on ground, and he had a buddy that I hadn't met yet, but he knew that I knew the ground and knew what I was doing. He's like, "Hey, can you take this guy? I got to go work or whatever." Well, the guy tipped me. He ended up shooting a good deer, and he tipped me. I said, "Hey, man, I can make money doing something I love to do." So that's kind of how it started. And then, when I got back here in Texas, after college, I went to Kansas for college, and that's where I was stationed at in the Army. So I've spent like 10 years in Kansas. But anyway, when I got back to Texas, I helped a few other people out, just basically working for tips. And then after I got out of the Army, I actually bought a hunt for me and my wife at Mesquite Tree Ranch. And it was their first year of selling hunts. It had been a family owned ranch for forever. And that was their first year doing it. And I told them I used to guide and help people, from Texas and Kansas. And long story short, they asked me to help. And now I kind of run all the guiding and booking for the ranch. And I've learned that that's really my passion, especially for whitetails. Don't get me wrong, I like to hunt them myself. Love to bow hunt them. But it's nothing compared to seeing hunters, grown men's faces when a big buck walks out and they get all excited, and I get to video that and capture all that. I love that part. As far as deer hunting goes, I love that part more than shooting them myself. And that's when I realized I was doing what I was supposed to be doing. Now turkey, I like to shoot turkey myself. Don't get turkey hunting, it doesn't matter to me really. Long as I'm there in the game and get to experience it, I really love to call to them. So anybody who lets me call for them, I eat that up in it. And ultimately, it doesn't matter whether I shoot them or not. But I do make sure that I reserve time for my personal hunting more so in turkey season than I do deer season. I could go as long as I get the deer meat at one point or another. I could go without shooting deer. Even though I love to do it, I love to bow hunt. But it's nothing compared to seeing somebody else get excited over a deer. So that's kind of how I got into guiding, and still doing it. So it's really special, especially when you get to somebody's first deer or first turkey, or their biggest deer or biggest turkey. Those are really cool moments that I would rather be a part of than myself shooting one. So that's kind of when I knew I was doing the right thing. So that's it in a nutshell.
Yeah. Big nutshell.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting how, we take one path and we kind of another one and go different ways. And
That's right.
I've been doing the podcast now for this my third season, and I've got just about 200 videos 200 podcasts out now. So
Oh wow, that's a lot.
it's interesting, all the different stories I get to hear, and it's like that's the exciting part is, even though I'm not out there hunting with you, I get to hear all those stories, and some of them are really cool stories, and
Right. Oh,
and
imagine.
some of the challenges you run through and everything else. And um, so tell us something about probably your most challenging hunt that you were actually hunting on.
Oh, personal hunt. Um,
Yeah.
Without a doubt, the first traditional buck that I shot, which was not all that long ago. Um, I started. I had used a compound forever, and I got a crossbow, a recurve, several compounds, and a longbow. But about 4 years ago, I think, was when I really started getting in. I got a really nice longbow made by Charlie Dersher, Two Tracks Bow Company. He's out of Michigan, and I just love shooting the thing. And it's really cool walking through the woods with something that weighs nothing.
Yeah.
It's just a cool feeling. Granted, they got to be close enough almost for me to spit on them, but it's really cool. And so anyway, there was this deer um, down at the ranch that I got on. And when he was 2 years old, he was probably, I'm being honest, he was probably 140 as far as his score. Not that we're hung on score, but that kind of gives you an idea how big he was as a
Yeah.
2 year. And we're free range, and a 2-year-old 140 is something special. And so I didn't put any hunters over there in that area, and he was showing himself a lot because I knew one of our hunters would shoot him.
Yeah,
And
and you
so,
wanted to shoot it.
well, not necessarily. I just wanted a buck that special at that young of age. I just wanted to see him at his potential. I didn't care if I shot
Yeah.
him at that point. And so that went on for 2 years as he was a 2-year-old and a 3-year-old, and he was just gorgeous. Just what everybody thinks about South Texas. I mean, he had wide, he was tall. It was a gorgeous deer. So I did my best to at least help him reach 4 years old.
Yeah.
And so 2 and 3, we saw him quite a bit. I took hunters there that already shot their buck. I said, yeah, shoot a doe, whatever, because he was staying in that area for a while. When the deer comes 4 years old, he disappears on us. And so I figured he had got maybe onto the other ranch and got shot because he was so regular. It wasn't every day that we saw him, but almost. And he was that way for 2 and 3 years old. And so when he was 4 years old, we didn't see him at all. And I was like, man, that deer, got shot or didn't make it through the South Texas summers or whatever. And so I'd written him off. And so we start what would be his 5th year. And we don't see him early season. So I just figured he was gone. Well, come about a week before our deer hunt start, he shows up on camera. And of course that instilled all the history that I had with him. and everything. And I was like, man, what are the odds of him doing the same thing he used to do, 2 years ago? And so I went to the rancher and asked him, and he kind of laughed. Mr. Marshall owns the ranch, and I said, hey, I got a lot of history with this deer, and it started out as not for me to shoot him, for our hunters to shoot him. I just wanted him to reach his potential. And of course, he grew up. He's a typical 12 with one kicker, so he has 13 points. He hit 160 right on the button. But anyway, I told him, I was like, hey, do you mind if I go try this deer? Like, the history I had with him and the stories with other hunters with him, not letting him hunt this deer, just kind of put something in me where I wanted to go and try and hunt him. And I told him, I was like, I'm going to try to get him with my longbow. And if that doesn't work, I might take the boomstick out, just because he's that special of a deer, And so this was the first year that I started bow hunting with the longbow. I got it just right before season. And this particular spot, there's no close cover to where he comes out, where his trail comes out. It was just not a really good spot. We had a feeder not far from there and a tripod, but it was 27 yards to the feeder, which is way out of my comfort zone with that
Yeah.
longbow. So, and people like, man, that's crazy how you ended up getting this deer. I was like, it really wasn't like thoughtful, or I wasn't Rambo. It was really my only option. So what I did was, I was just hoping that this deer would come out on a trail that he did in the past. And so some deer, I knew some deer were still using it. So what I did was I got there. I hunted it the evening before I killed him, based on the wind. And I knew he didn't come out that evening, but I was on the opposite side that I killed him on, based on the wind. But I knew the wind was supposed to change overnight. So after the deer had left that was there that evening, I kind of went over and picked a spot for a wind change. And that's what killed him. I killed him, the evening before I actually killed him the next morning. But scouting that little spot out beforehand, so that I could get there in the dark and know exactly that that where I was going to set up and work. That's what killed him, really, was the scouting part. So anyway, I got there and I kind of pushed over some grass and just had some lanes there. And this was the time of year right when the bucks were starting to break out of bachelor groups, starting to get a little feisty, starting to see new fresh scrapes and fresh rubs everywhere. That evening I had seen some of the young bucks get pretty feisty, running, spot checking every doe. I was like, I'm going to take some doe estrus with me. Maybe that'll help kind of cover me up a little bit. So I put out some doe and estrus on the right side of this trail that he comes out. And so I got on my belly and kind of just knocked over some grass towards this road that they come out on. And so I was just laying there on my belly. That was my only option. Like I said, there was no close mesquites to sit in or nothing like that. It was just tall grass, kind of tall pasture looking stuff. And so I went out there and put out some doe and estrus before, and I was all worried about other deer coming and busting me since I was so close. So it really was, meant to be, because he was the first deer that showed up. And I remember seeing him come down that trail and he's walking straight to me. And, it starts off seeing the top of his antlers coming, and he just got bigger and bigger. Of course, when you're on the ground, it makes him even look bigger than he was, So I'm sitting there laying on my belly and just waiting for a chance to get my knees under me. And he turns left like he's going to the feeder. Then all of a sudden, that was bad for me because there was lots of tall grass. I was going to either not get a shot at him or have to crawl. But before he got too far to the left, boy, he threw that old head up and he'd smelt that doe and estrus and turned right back around and stopped about 10 yards, gave me a quarter away shot. And, the doe and estrus kept his attention long enough where I could get my knees under me, coming up right over the grass. And just everything that would never, ever work like that again in a hunt worked perfect. that's probably, as far as deer goes, that's probably something that'll never happen again like that. And it was something that every part of him was meant to be. Him not getting shot by any of our other hunters, beforehand, because I'd never planned on hunting them. It's not very good business when the guide shoots a big deer. So, but that particular deer, all my hunters actually wanted me to kill that deer. So, I even asked a couple of them, I was like, "Hey, man, I don't want to." I don't want to get on your bad side or anything. Y'all mind if I go after this deer? So, and they all, I've shot basically one trophy buck since I've been guiding there since 2014. Just because it's not good for business when the guide shoots anything. So, but that's
Yeah.
probably the coolest deer story I have. I don't know if it was maybe the hardest I ever worked for. But the fact that just being on your belly, shooting with a longbow, and knowing that deer for several years is probably something that tops my hunts as far as deer. And it happens to be the biggest deer I've shot to date. So, and that
Well,
was the first.
basically you prepared for 5 years to shoot it.
You're right. Well, and that was the first. That was the first animal I took with a longbow. I've shot many deer with a compound before that, but that was the very first animal I drew my compound or my longbow back on. Was my biggest buck ever. That's crazy to me.
Yeah. Not only the biggest one, but probably one of the most challenging archery equipment you can use.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's what I said. Everything, especially with that longbow, everything has to pretty much be perfect. That's why I think the longbow is a great fit for me, because I really don't care if as long as I get some meat somewhere, somehow, I really don't care if I shoot them. I just love being out there as far as deer goes. But everything on that hunt worked perfect. It probably won't ever work like that ever yet. So,
yeah, that is definitely an interesting story. How you watched it go and it disappears, think it's gone, it comes back, and then you get it.
Yep.
Yeah, that's
It's
pretty cool.
And there's so many of those stories with with guiding. So many stories almost just like that. One I can think of in particular involves my wife. She doesn't get to go down there and hunt very often. She's gone down there maybe 3 times, and she's killed a great deer every time. But there's one deer in particular. I take her after all of our paid hunters get a chance to hunt, and there was just one deer that we called Bullwinkle, because I had pictures of him playing with raccoons. So I called, it was Rocky and Bullwinkle.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
Yeah. And so I have it's crazy. I have so many pictures of him playing with raccoons. But anyway, he's a great deer, typical 10 point with two kickers on his G2s, just gorgeous deer. And so I had somebody in this stand every hunt that we had, every morning, every evening, some sat all day for this deer, and nobody ever shot him. We hardly ever saw him. And so I take my wife. She comes down there after all our hunters are done, and she bow hunts for the first few days. She said, what, on the last day, I want to sit in the stand with you, just kind of, end our hunt. And that was the last morning we were going to hunt, and he's the first deer that shows up. And it's the same stand, and it's the same stand that I'd had every hunter in every morning, every evening that we had hunters hunting for. Nobody ever got a shot at him or seen him, and she sits there one time and kills him. It's stories like that that are just crazy to me. We'll see a deer on one side of the ranch, and he'll get shot on the other side, and it'll be the only time we ever see him over there. Just crazy stuff like that is what I love about hunting in general. You can scout and think you got it all figured out and everything, and then something like that happens, something crazy happens, and it just adds to the story, the experience, and sharing those stories around the campfire somewhere. That's what hunting's all about. And that's a part of it that I love.
Yeah, sometimes the stories and experiences you have while you're on the hunt is actually the reward for going out. The meat's always good, but sometimes some of the hunts, the reward is not getting the meat. You don't have to kill an animal to have a good hunt.
Oh yeah.
Although it's a bonus. I like
Right.
to
Well,
go out because
it's the
I
end
want to
game.
kill one and get the meat.
It's the end game, and it's crazy. It's even more so to me. The process of turkey hunting is where it's all at for me. The conversation you have with the turkey, the moves you might have to make using the
Right,
terrain and all that stuff. Pulling trigger is just kind of the end of it. And
right.
like the colonel says in his book, I wish I could breathe air back into him to hunt him again. And I'm sure it's the same way for most people with deer too. It's especially those guys that put in the time and scout, put boots on the ground. I love every part of that. That's why I love guiding. I love scouting. I love putting boots on the ground and seeing everything, walking the ground instead of driving it. I love every process of that. And so the process of it to me is more important than the end game. Even though that's what I get paid for. It's more important to my hunters the end game, but the process is more important to me. So
Yeah, it kind of is a win-win.
yep. Oh yeah. It really is.
Yeah, um it's always kind of nice. Um, my I got a call in from the VA. They called and want to do something or other here, so I may mute a little bit. But tell us about probably one of the most memorable hunts you had with some of your guiding.
Oh wow. Um, some of I guess some that stick out are like misses. They got second chances. Um, I remember, it's so funny to me how excited a buck can get a grown man. And I'm talking about these guys, and I don't know if it's the camera because I try to film it, right? I love to relive it, but also I like to film it for my hunters. They like to go back. Now I don't make a TV quality show or nothing like that on my videos, but they enjoy go back and reliving that moment too. So I'll film these, and I've had several guys just miss their great shots, and I'm talking about they will miss the deer by a long ways. Um, and so I got one of those on video. Yeah, I won't say his name. I know he won't care, but I won't say his name just to not embarrass the guy. But he's a great friend of mine now. Of course, all my hunters are most of my closest friends now. But um, he missed the deer by like 4 or 5 feet, and you see the sand splash in the sendero past the buck. Of course, he runs off like, "Oh man, don't show that! Don't show that!" It's like, calm down. We might get another shot at him or something like that. And so the deer comes back out in the sendero about 45 minutes later. And of course, he's on pins and needles then, but he comes out, and so he gets ready to take the shot again. And right when he pulls the trigger, the deer moves his head down. And if the deer wouldn't have done that, he would have missed it by a foot again to the left. What happened was when he pulled the trigger, the deer put his head down and he hits him right in the neck and drops him like that. So he gets up there at first like, "Oh, that's why he dropped it. I hit him in the neck." I was like, "You weren't aiming for the neck, were you?" He's like, "No." He's aiming for vitals right behind the shoulder because he got so excited. He would have missed that deer again by at least a foot or more the second shot too. So that those are probably the coolest. Uh, Granted, misses aren't good for business or whatever, but those are probably the coolest moments when people get so excited the whole stand shakes if we're in a box blind. Um, I took that same guy. Oh, matter of fact, in the same area, the same guy several years later after that happened, took and rattled him, and it was the right time. And those who have never been in South Texas, when it's the right time to rattle, are really missing out. You need to do it at least once in your life because it's unbelievable. And so I took and rattled. We got down out of his box blind uh, and rattled down this one sendero and rattled up a good 4-year-old. He was probably, again, we're not on score, but just to kind of get an idea how big he was. He's probably in the mid 140s, a really good solid deer, real tall deer. Rattled him up to within 50 yards and he misses him. I think he had breathed so hard he fogged up his scope, and so he
Oh,
didn't didn't have a good sight picture on the deer, so he misses them. So he is so down on himself and everything. It's like, hey, we're not done. Like the deer are crazy right now. So there's odds are we can get on another one. He's like, you think so? It's like, just in the whole time he's just down on him, so you can see it. So I take him, we rattle up 4 or 5 smaller bucks. I was like, well, let's make one more move down this sendero. We'll rattle one more time down there. And sure enough, we rattle, and within a minute and a half, we had another big shooter coming, and that time he made a good shot on him, and he was like a baby. He was like a little kid, so excited. There's so many of those stories that stick out. There's tons of them. And turkey as well. I've had so many of those stories where we either had to crawl on our hands and knees, or got second chances, got busted, and then got a second chance at the bird, or missed and got a second chance at the bird. Had turkey come in silent behind us, and then all of a sudden gobble right behind you and just scare you.
Yeah.
That's just part of those experiences you get blessed with. If you spend very many days in the woods. But probably the coolest thing for a guide is seeing that raw emotion on grown men. It is hilarious.
Yeah. You get so excited that you
Oh
can't,
man, it's so fun.
you're like to be able to stand up, getting so
Yeah.
excited.
And it's crazy because also, like, after the shot is always the worst. I mean, after they pull the trigger and think they shot them, I mean, the whole, especially if like you're in one of those box blinds, the whole thing's shaking. It's they turn around and smile at you, and they're just to me, for something to provide that much excitement in a grown man and it be legal is pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't take any drugs.
That's right. That's right. So
Kind of like the Ted Nugent song Fred Bear.
yeah.
Yeah. It kind of like that, go through and tangle with a grizzly bear. That gets you excited.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It had been a while since I got that excited, but like after I shot that one buck with my longbow, I was pretty pumped.
Yeah.
I was pretty excited. It's just a different beast as far as like the archery stuff goes. I've never been one who was always technical about my archery equipment. Like, I would just make sure that I was on the money. I was more focused on the hunting side of it versus actually paying attention. Making sure my bow's perfectly tuned, making sure my arrow matches my bow. While I shot compound most of the time, I never really got into that very much. As long as I was hitting the dot, that's all I really cared about. I didn't care about FOC or momentum or any of that. I just wanted to hit my target. That's all I worried about. And then it's funny, when I switched over to shooting traditional, you have to pay attention to stuff like that.
Yeah.
The slower your arrow is, the more you need to pay attention to what's important in your tools, if that makes sense. You see all these people on the archery pages talk about FOC and broadheads and the heavier arrows, and I've learned it's not. You shouldn't go into it with a predetermined concept of how heavy an arrow you're going to shoot before you ever match it to your bow. I've learned that penetration is what you're after. Straight arrow flight is by far the most important thing, and
Right.
that's going to determine your FOC and how heavy your arrow is. Not you. Your bow is going to determine that. Whatever you get the straightest arrow flight from, that's what FOC you're stuck with, or what you should be shooting, not stuck with. But you see some hunters like, I want to get a 600 grain arrow from tip to nock, and I was like, well, if that's not what your bow shoots straight, that's probably not what you should be shooting.
Right.
And it's funny, usually especially with traditional archery, you can figure that out a little bit easier. I think it takes more practice, more shots, and more experimenting with arrows, but to get it perfect, that straight arrow flight, that's going to tell you how many grains you should be shooting. Not us. That's another thing I love about the traditional side of it, is matching everything perfect. And so I learned a lot about arrows, how important arrows are, switching over to traditional. Like, I haven't picked up my compound in probably 4 or 5 years, but it's something that I know I can pick up today and hit the bullseye, if it's under 40 yards. So, but with traditional, you have to pay attention, to everything just a little bit more,
Yeah,
to
you
be
do.
consistent. So, I just thought that was a good learning experience from shooting traditional. Um, don't go into it with, I'm going to shoot a 600 grain arrow because it's already flying so slow. No, you match your arrow to your bow, and that's what's going to give you the most penetration. So that's something I've learned, last 4 years.
Well, and the only time you'd have to worry about arrow weight is if you're going on a hunt someplace and they have minimum arrow weight.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, and most of the time, like, I have 2 recurves and a longbow, and most of the time, when you get your straight arrow flight, it's going to be somewhat in the ballpark of what you're wanting as far as FOC and weight. Because it's going to take a little bit heavier arrow, in traditional, I think, to get a complete straight, arrow from release to target. The lighter you go, it's going to have that little kick to the left before it comes back. So I think when you get straight arrow flight, you're going to be happy with the weight and the FOC and all that stuff anyway. I think it fine tunes it. There's, like I said, straight arrow flight, I've learned, out penetrates a sharp broadhead, a heavy arrow, it out penetrates all that. Then all those things come into play after that, your broadhead of choice or whatever. So, but that was a fun learning experience, because traditional archery, once you get your mechanics down, is so much fun. Again, it's something like, once you release that perfect arrow, it's like hitting a home run in baseball or shooting a 3-point shot in basketball, and it's going in as soon as you release it. It's the same feeling. It's a lot of fun, way more enjoyable to shoot a lot, traditional than with a compound. It gets frustrating sometimes, hunting. Certain shots you can't take, that you would just be in the chips with a compound, but at the same time you see things that you normally wouldn't see because you've taken a shot already with your compound, versus having a trad bow. So, I enjoy both, but it's just, like I said, if I was really out there just to kill, I'd take my compound everywhere. But I really enjoy just being out there. So, and it's fun. Like I said, carrying a little video stick, lightweight stick that weighs nothing. Sometimes I feel like I want to twirl it. It's so light.
Yeah.
It's a cool feeling being out there with just a stick and string. So,
Well, there's not much to go wrong. You don't have a rest that's not adjusted right. You don't have a sight that's off. You don't have to figure out which pin.
Yep. Nothing to go wrong but you. That's it.
Yeah.
No,
it's all, if it's not where it's supposed to be, it's your fault.
Yeah. I did learn to carry, an extra string, so I always have a spare string with me, because that is one thing. If your string gets cut on a limb or something, kind of just a spectator at that point.
Yeah.
So I always have a backup string. It's always a good idea. Always carry 2 of everything.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that makes it a little bit, you don't have to worry about that one little string. The compounds, if your string gets cut, you're done.
Bring it. Yeah, you're in trouble.
You can't change them in the field unless you have a portable bow
Nope.
press, and the new bows don't even work with the little portable bow presses. I
That's
got
right.
one of those cable ones, and it guys had one of those kind of almost beyond parallel limbs, and it wasn't going to make enough contact. I didn't feel confident even trying to compress it,
Yeah.
and the older bows that you could use those on. All my bows I can use it on because I don't have any really new ones.
Yeah,
So
that is a huge plus to trad. You can just restring it right there.
yeah.
It doesn't take a genius.
Well, and if you're going on a big expensive hunt, take 2 bows.
Yeah. Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
get 2 bows set up to shoot the same arrow, set up exactly the same, so doesn't matter which one you're on, and
Yep.
and spare releases, and when I go hunt, I've got my wrist
Yeah.
strap and I got my handheld and I got a backup release.
Yeah.
So if I,
Well, the guys that I know, I've never been elk hunting like in Colorado or New Mexico, and the guys I know that do it, they always take two bows with them just in case, and that's understandable and a smart thing to do.
yeah, because you want to get up there and spend all that time and all that money on a hunt, and then have something go wrong with your bow, and then now
Oh yeah,
your
that's
hunt's done. It's not like you can go down a bow shop and buy one and get one
right.
set up. You could if you was lucky, you get up there and the shop's still open, but you know, luck is it happens on a Sunday afternoon and they're all closed, and by the time you go get one, your hunt's over, if you're hunting weekend or something. But
Yep.
yeah, go to one like that, have a second bow. Or in your case, extra string. If it's,
Extra.
trad
Yep.
bows, you want extra string. And you never know, they wear out, things can go wrong on them. And even just regular shooting, if you don't catch anything, sometimes they just all of a sudden something will start breaking and you'll see something going on, and you don't want to be drawn back and shooting, with the string breaking in the middle of it.
Yeah. Well, that's why I thought about, when I can set enough money aside, because they're not cheap on some of them, to get another longbow just in case something happens to what I got. I
Yeah,
just will take my recurve too. It shoots very similar, quite a bit faster though. But there's something about those real light longbows that I actually love carrying. So I want to get another one made just like it.
yeah. And that gives you two options, and maybe a different wood pattern or something.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Go with something a little bit different, a little cooler or something.
Yeah, I think my next one I'm gonna get like a 1 inch longer draw length. I think so I can find a little bit more comfortable uh, set point, anchor point. So I think just a little bit longer draw would fit me just a little bit better. It's something my anchor point now is like out towards the end of my mouth versus up in my cheek, and so it's just something that I had to do with that bow. It was actually a gift. It was a tip from one of my hunters. He knew what kind of bow I liked. He knew I'd been looking at Charlie Dersher's bows. Two Tracks Bow Company is his bow company, and one of my hunters saw that I was slobbering over one of his bows, and that's the one he bought me for a tip. So it was
Oh
a
yeah.
pretty cool tip, because they're not cheap. So and he was pretty excited. The first deer I killed with it was my biggest deer ever too. So
Oh
uh,
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
And that was your gift from him.
yeah, it was a pretty cool full circle there. Um, from who made it to how I got it and what happened with it after I got it. So and then I'm gonna try to get a Grand Slam in Turkey with it, and then I'll probably retire it and get a new one. So a Grand Slam, for those who don't know, is one of each subspecies in North America: an Osceola, Eastern, a Merriam, and a Rio. Something I've wanted to do with that bow more than shoot whitetail with it. So it's not going to be an easy task, but it'll be fun trying.
Yeah, yeah. It's not easy to get all four of them to start with, no matter whether you're using shotgun
Right.
or
Yeah.
compound or longbow or recurve or anything. It's just getting the chance to even just hunt all four of them
Well,
is
and the
not
thing
easy.
about using a longbow for turkey, I mean, you could do everything perfect, get the turkey within 12 yards, and still might not get a shot at him. Because it's something I can hold it back for a little bit, but not long. It's something you pretty much gotta have a shot when you pull back, and
Right.
with the turkey's eyesights plus having to be so close. Like I said, you can do everything perfect, and you still may not even get a shot off. So yeah, it'd be interesting. See, you definitely need a little help.
Yeah.
uh,
Now, what weight is your longbow?
47.
47?
Yep. 47 pounds at 28. So I got a 28-inch draw length. It is, I believe it's 49 inches long. So it's a hunter. You can You can use it inside of, like, I don't like pop-ups, but you could use it inside of a pop-up, especially if you cant it a little bit. It's not as long as some longbows, like some of those 60 inchers. It's not that long. It's pretty short for most longbows. So it's a fast 47 pounds. It's pretty stiff, but it shoots great, super smooth, and you don't have to pull it back very far to get all of it, and that's what I like about it. So, yeah, I love his bows. His bows are awesome. And like I said, for 47 pounds, I was expecting it to be a little bit slower. I was pretty impressed.
Yeah.
Pretty impressed.
On setting up the bows and the slower bows, a little more forgiving in your form and stuff.
Yep.
And everybody's trying to shoot for these faster bows. They want faster.
Yeah.
The only problem is after a certain point, if your form's not perfect, you're never going to group with it.
Yeah.
And that's part a lot of archers don't understand is those fast bows, they're a little difficult to get a good shot going on them.
Yeah, I think it's kind of, I don't know, back in the day, it didn't seem, back in the day, like the 90s and stuff, kind of when I was getting into bow hunting, it didn't seem like, you didn't hear so much. Of course, social media wasn't nothing like what it is today, but you didn't hear much about, making sure your bow is tuned. I'd never heard that until maybe 10 years after of bow hunting. Making sure your bow is perfectly tuned, because back then you would have, everybody seemed like to have the same problem where your field points, you'd sight in for your field points and your broadheads are hitting low and to the right, and so you're like, man, what do I do? Do I set a pin for my broadheads and one for my field tips, or nowadays the technology is so good, and you can trust most bow shops to where most bows you buy now are almost perfectly tuned, just because of technology and everything we've learned. It's just crazy to see, and broadheads too. Where the broadheads I use, toothy arrow broadheads, they spin as good as any field tip, and they're one solid piece, fixed plate. Just the technology today is so much greater than it used to be. Now, I like said, my compound, I haven't picked it up in 4 years, but I can pick it up right now and drill a bullseye with it if it's 40 yards or closer. With the trad, I've learned that it's more muscle memory, and that your mechanics have to be, at least for me, my mechanics have to be more spot on with the trad bow than a compound bow. So for me, it's just the opposite. My compound, I can pick up with that release right there, come to the same spot, and it's been dead on.
Yeah, you might take a few shots to get back in your form, and but it doesn't take, once you get that good form, it don't take long to a few shots and you're back in that form. If you don't have a good form, it takes a long time to get back up ready for hunting season. I've seen a lot of where they haven't shot the bow all year long. They take a couple shots and ready to go hunt, and they can't even group within a 2-foot target.
Right.
Yeah.
That's another that's another crazy story. We've had some hunters show up. We had, not to get off the subject of archery, but
well, that's okay.
we had a year where we probably had a 50% success rate. Now, almost 100% opportunity rate, and I'm talking about just pure rifles. 50%. That's that energy and excitement coming into play a lot.
Right.
So the following year, Mr. Marshall, the ranch owner, had me sight in everybody's weapon, or at least make sure it was zero. Because my job in the military, I was an infantry sniper in the military. So I have a little bit of experience in that aspect of it. And so he's like, just go make sure there's zero, just so that we know we're holding up our end of the bargain. We know that they're on target, and we're not putting people out there with weapons that are off it. So some of these guys' weapons, I don't know if they've ever shot them, or what, but I mean, some of them weren't even hitting a huge, like, life size, body size target at 100 yards. And, and they're paying, $2,600 to come hunt with us. And that's like, man, what are you doing?
Hadn't even sight the
I mean,
rifle in yet.
you can't hit 100 yards with a rifle. Something's wrong. So, yeah, there's a lot that I've had to, sight in their rifles for them, and they're going on these hunts. I just, man, it was like, man, if I was, of course, some of those guys that's throwaway money to some people. For me, if I go on a $2,500 hunt, I'm making sure every piece of my equipment is spot on.
Right. Well,
So
I shot on a rifle team in high school,
yeah,
and we were shooting 22s at 50 yards or 50 feet, and uh, our 9 ring is the diameter of the 22.
right, yeah,
So you got to be pretty darn accurate. So reloading as well. I've been reloading since 70s, mid 70s, and so I worked up a load for my @6, and I went to the indoor range, put it on a bench, because I'm worried about which bullet combination between the bullet and the powder, because I use Hornady's SST 180 grade bullet
mm-hmm.
in my @6, and so I'm working up different powder loads, taking the middle, go up a half a grain, down a half a grain until I figure which one. So I was able to put 3 shots, same hole, and you could see just 3 little bitty nubs out of there, maybe even a millimeter off of being perfect dead center. And then I just said, okay, I'm going to work up a load from my 270. 3 shots, 1 hole, no marks. It looked like 1 shot.
Nice.
That's why I reload.
Yep.
And so then I figured it out. I went through the ballistics chart, and it says, okay, at 100 yards, I'm an inch and a half, I think it was, high at 100, dead on at 200, and about 3 inches low at 300. So I put the crosshairs up to 300 yards where I want it to go. I'm either an inch higher at the 3 inches low.
Yeah.
Your kill zone is bigger than that.
They're either way.
Yeah, and then I going up on a moose hunt in Canada, and I got a 1903 Springfield in an @6, and it has just the peep sight and the front bead.
Right.
And I borrowed a guy's with a 4/0 scope on it, figuring I'd just take that, but I wanted to sight in the @6 as well. And so I sighted in 100 yards, got it all sighted in. I got a target at 200 yards, one of them 2-foot square papers.
Right.
Bead covers the paper. I can't see the paper. So I'm doing one of those, up and down, left and right. It's like, boom, 3 shots. I hit the paper 3 times out of 3 shots at 200 yards when I could not see the target. And then,
nice.
of course, nothing. I'm an archer. I shoot 20 yards, 30 yards. So I'm not shooting long range.
Right.
So I sighting in the @6. We got it sighted with the scope. And I'm just, maybe quarter of an inch left of center. And I said, that's good enough. Not when you're shooting at almost 300 yards at a moose.
Right. Yeah.
And of course, I'm shooting standing.
It's a totally
on a rifle team. I put the elbow down, and I've done it for years. So the first shot, it just kind of moves around, walks up the hill a little bit more. Take a second shot, and I put the crosshairs. I figured I got me right on. I put the crosshairs where I wanted to go. Okay, I was further than what I thought. So now I put the bead on, the crosshairs on the spine, and shoot. This time it kind of jumps, moves up a little bit more, and I says, it's got to be way further than I'm thinking it is. So then I raised up about head height. I pulled the trigger. It fell over. Didn't even take a step. It just fell over. So we get up there, and we're looking at this moose, and there's one little bitty drop, maybe 1/8 of an inch drop, just one little drop on the snow.
Yeah.
So we got it gutted. We got it back the next morning. I'm trying to clean it. I got it all ready to get all around, and I still not found a bullet hole. I was like, where did I hit it? Well, I hit it at the base of the skull, right in the spine.
Wow.
At 300 yards. I'm a great shot. No, I was shooting left that far. At the close range, I was off a little bit, but at 300 yards, I was off by feet.
Right. Yep.
Yeah,
Makes
didn't even think about it. That's something I learned. So this time when I set up for mine, it's dead on. Because
it's
I'd
a
shoot one hole and I'd shoot at the hole.
totally different concept. Yeah, and see that too at our range that people want to shoot, and they'll shoot it at the 50-yard target. Okay, it's zero. And I was like, no, no, because you're not going to get, at least with rifles, we don't get many 50-yard shots. So everything is usually 100 to 300. And I said, no, that's not zero. Like, you need to shoot it. And people don't realize that. They may be,
Right.
they may shoot a quarter size grouping at 50. I was like, but you realize how big that's going to be at 300?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're going to be off easily a foot.
So, a lot of people don't grasp that, how big of a difference that makes. At 50, you need to be driving a nail, so yeah, that's a
Yeah.
fun.
You do the same thing in archery, when you're shooting, and
Mm-hmm.
one of the things that we can do in there is you have your pins lined up and down, and one of the things I do to check to see it, because a lot of people will have a tendency to kind of cant the bow a little bit. Now longbows and recurves, you can do that because it doesn't really matter what the bow's doing
Yeah,
because you
right,
don't have any sights.
right.
When we
You're right.
got those pins, what I'll tell the archers to do is, okay, at 20 yards, shoot your 20-yard pin, shoot your 30-yard pin, 40-yard, 50-yard pin, and see how many pins you have. And if they don't go perfectly straight up and down, you're canting your bow at an angle. So then
Yeah.
as you're shooting further, now you're canting. So now then you're going to be off and off and off further, as you're turning them. And that's something that, you don't think about. And then, the really close shots. We've talked this on the podcast several times, but really close shots,
Mm-hmm.
like a 5-foot shot or a 6-foot shot. What pin do you
Yeah.
use? It ain't the 20.
Yeah.
It's
No.
probably your 60 or 70-yard pin.
Yeah.
And it's that, where is your eyes? Where's the pins? Where's the arrow? You're, 2.5, 3 inches lower than where you're seeing.
Mm-hmm.
Shooting out of a blind. You shoot
I've
that blind every time if you don't pay attention.
done that plenty of times, shooting at like possums and stuff like that. Oh, he's right here. I'll shoot him, and it always shoots like 6 inches in front of it.
Yeah.
It's because I'm using my 20-yard pin at a 5-yard target. Yeah, or
Yeah.
not even 5 yards. Just a few steps.
Yeah, that makes it tough.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's there's a lot to archery that's a lot of fun to do, and I'm kind of looking forward to being able to get back into it a little bit again here. Back in April, I had a triple bypass, and then 10
Oh,
weeks later, I had to go back in and put plates in because it wasn't healing, and I'm just out of the weight restrictions now. But if you're sitting around for 5 months doing nothing, the little water bottles get a little
right.
heavy.
Oh,
So
yep.
going rehab, working on stuff, and we started working arms last time, and now my chest is all sore.
I know what that's like. Yeah, I got the WD-40 out not too long ago on this
Oh,
back shoulder here, because you do everything in trad. It's totally different, but everything with trad is all, or at least for me, is all the back shoulder and back part of the elbow does everything for you. And boy, I had to lubricate it up,
yeah.
whip
Well,
it back.
when you think about it, your fingers are down as soon as you roll around for that. What's the elbow goes up, and
Yeah,
you can feel it going from kind of the back shoulder to the in between the shoulder blades. As soon as you roll that hand up, so you use a little bit different muscles. You're still using your back to draw. It's just it's different when you get that
yeah,
hand rolled over.
it really is. Yeah,
And then, when I use my handheld, my hand's completely turned over, so my little finger's pointing up, directly over my thumb. But with my wrist strap, it's sideways, so it's parallel to the ground.
right.
And then with fingers, it's the opposite of what my hand held.
Which one do you like better, the wrist or the one where with your thumb?
I use the thumb one, but I don't use my thumb to pull the trigger.
Oh, okay.
You shouldn't be using your thumb to pull the trigger or your index finger to pull the trigger. That's the first lesson I teach is do not pull the trigger with your finger if you're using a wrist strap. Quit pulling
Okay.
the trigger. because when you pull the trigger, you have to think about you moving the fingers. While you think about moving the fingers, you have to stop aiming
Gotcha.
because you can't do two fine motor skills and aiming.
Right.
Aiming is one thing, and if you have to think about your finger, a good experiment I was like this. Okay, aim, look at a little spot, put your finger out, now make your finger move without thinking about it. You have to think about the finger to make it move. And as soon as they say, oh yeah, I can do it, okay, I'm done. I'll say, okay, switch to it the other side. It's like, no, I can do it. Okay, lesson's over. You're not teachable.
Okay, you're not teachable. Yeah.
I've done that. I've done that. It's like, okay, best just
Good luck.
walk away. Because you're not teachable, not coachable, and I'm not gonna waste my time.
Yep.
Because the next person's like, oh yeah. And that's you'll learn that over many years of teaching between I become an archery instructor in '95, and then
Oh, so you've been long time.
yeah, and I took martial arts when I was in college, and for many years after that. So I spent close to 20 years in martial arts, and you do a lot of teaching, especially when you start getting up and being a black belt. You're teaching all the time then,
Right. Yeah.
and you learn how to well, I combined my martial arts I did Hapkido. So there's a lot of techniques in there. And I put that into my archery teaching. And, I teach one specific way to do it this way. And then we modify it to fit you. Because that's how I do it. I don't, you know, am I the best? No. Am I good at what I do? Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you the best one to learn from me? Maybe.
Right.
If you don't have an open mind, I'm done. I'm
Right.
not gonna waste my time.
No,
Um,
I'll learn from anybody, whether they're more experienced from me or less experienced, or you know, that's one thing I've always loved to do is learn. Because I wish there was somebody to teach me a lot of stuff when when I didn't know.
yeah.
So
Well, some of the stuff you'll learn by accident.
yep.
I know me and a guy I used to go hunt with all the time. We dragged a deer back, and normally we just start skinning it. And it's a lot of work, pulling that hide off. And
Mhm.
it was all dirty and stuff. So we just hosed it out, hosed the inside of the outside. We just basically just hosed it all down. That hide pulled off so easy after that because that water separated the hide
Yeah.
connection from the deer itself. So after that, we hose them down every time. The
Yep.
winter time we're hosing it down, and then first we go in the garage and do it where it's warm.
Have you ever tried the air, compressed air? If you got an air hose,
Yeah,
stick.
I've heard about it. I haven't tried it, but
Yeah, it makes it pretty simple.
yeah, just stick that air in there and separate it. And,
Yep.
because pulling on there and then trying to use a knife to clean it, and then you up nicking the hide, and if you
Yep.
save the hide, which I used to save all my hides until I went through a divorce, and she just threw them outside. It was in the freezer, she just threw them outside. So then now he had to get thrown away.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's um yeah, there's all kinds of little tricks on doing that kind of stuff and cutting them up and keeping the membrane off. And there's a difference in process. I always process my own.
Yeah.
I didn't really like taking them into the butchers. For one, you're not guaranteed to get your stuff back. You're
Nope.
not guaranteed to get all your meat back. The one place up here where a lot of people would take them, it's like they donate hundreds of pounds every year. You can't tell me the hunter's going to go in and pay for the processing before they do anything and not pick up their meat.
Yeah.
And then I had two guys two of my buddies took in each a deer. One was probably 100 pounds bigger than the other one. This is, almost a 300-pound deer. He shot a huge one.
Mm.
And they go to pick up their meat together, and they both get the same amount.
Same amount. Yeah. No.
No, this is
can't.
what you're giving for deer. And it's like, no, I brought in a 300-pound deer, and so went back and got some more. So
Yeah.
I just do it myself.
I think as far as processing goes, I think the only people that could give you your deer back are the guys that take in limited number of deer a year. Because if you get too busy, you're going to have to, like, okay, here's all our hamburger meat, here's all our chicken fried steaks. Here's and do it that way to keep up with demand, or else you're going to fall way too far behind.
Right.
And so that's why I think the little guys are the ones where you get your stuff that you gave them back, because they know not to get too busy. But those big places that you can just go drop a deer off anytime, 24 hours a day, and they take in thousands upon thousands of deer. I
Right.
don't think any way they could stay in business and not give somebody else's deer. I've seen that process of how they do it, and it's just madness inside
Yeah.
there. I, you know, I do my own now too, but I could see where they don't take the time to make sure and keep everybody separated, because when they take in so many deer, they can't, like, they won't have the space.
Yeah.
Process that it takes. So I was glad I got to see that process, because I understand it a lot better now. For those people that take in thousands and thousands of deer a year, it's pretty hard to keep up.
Yeah. And I've seen them where you go in there, look at them, and some of the meat's, dark brown and green already.
Oh,
And I was like, okay, is that getting mixed in with my meat?
yeah,
So,
right.
yeah.
Exactly. That's what I'd be afraid of. And if we get something specially made, like if we want some special kind of sausage or something, we might take it in. But we pretty much, we'll make either chicken fry or hamburger meat, and then just do whatever we want with the chicken fry stuff. So now we've ground up our own stuff, and we don't have to deal with it. Plus, it's a lot cheaper now.
Oh, yeah.
A lot
Well,
cheaper than it is
and,
now.
and when you take and cook the ground
Yeah.
meat,
Yep.
you went through the processor, smell it. It doesn't smell very
Right.
good.
Right.
Because they put all that fat. They don't grind the fat and the membrane off. But when I grind it, especially with the grinder I had before, it's like there was no membrane. It was pure 100% meat. There was no membrane in it at all, because it was one of the old hand ones, small ones, and it wouldn't grind up anything. So you
Right.
grind a little bit, you pull it off, clear it
Gotta,
off, put it back on, and then I got a bit bigger one. Now I got an electric one. Actually, my son's got it now, but it'll grind that stuff up. But I still like to clean all that stuff off as much as I can, because there's no value in it.
I'm the same way. Like, if somebody spends the money to hunt them, why not make sure you get the kind of meat you want? Like everybody said, oh, don't waste that. I don't want to chew on stuff forever. I want
Right.
good stuff. That's what I'm paying for. And that's part of the whole hunting. So I cut all that stuff out too. Granted, you may lose a little bit of meat, but it's not like what everybody thinks it is. I'll cut all that gristle and tendon out there. I don't want to chew on that
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah, I don't either. Well, we're just about up on our time here. So
Yeah.
um
Because it's my time to go pick the kids up from school, so it's perfect.
yeah, perfect time. Yeah. So what comments do you have here in closing?
Not much really. I just enjoyed. Was an honor to get invited to be on it by you. Enjoyed talking archery with you. If anybody ever has, I know I barely went over the scents and stuff, but if anybody has a question, that's one topic I am very sure of, that I can help somebody, versus just hearing myself talk. I've had many years of experience and a ton of different situations and different places in it. I can tell you what to waste your money on or what not to waste your money on, as far as sense goes. So if anybody's ever interested or wants to know more about that, then feel free to reach out anytime.
Yeah, maybe we can have a podcast. We just focus on scents and
Absolutely.
kind of go over that. We can get one of those scheduled in here, and we'll just talk scent control, and we'll talk brands, and is it good or bad, or is it okay, and we can just go over whatever we want to do on that. And
Perfect.
Format's open. I don't have a specific agenda, but we talk archery to start with.
There you go.
And then go from there. So if you want to watch this video, you can watch it on the Archery Talk 101 Facebook group. You can also go out to my YouTube channel, Learn to Fix It Yourself. I have a YouTube channel. I have all kinds of stuff, not just archery stuff out there. And you can listen to the podcast on Spotify or other places where you get your podcasts as well. You can go out to audible.com, and you can download it and listen to that free. It don't cost you on that. Now, a lot of the audible books it costs you, but the podcast is free, so you don't have to pay for anything now. So it's been really nice talking with you.
Here, good talk to you, Roy.
You know, we've got the first three letters of our first name is the same, and the first two of our last name the
Hey,
same. So
C
yeah, that
squared.
was kind of interesting how it worked out. Just RC squared.
That's right.
So my name is
Now
Roy Canterbury.
free or a hunt sometimes, so we can
Yeah,
say that on a hunt video or something.
yeah, yeah, yeah. We'll have to do that once I can get where I can pull my bow back or shoot my gun.
There you go.
So yeah, my name is Roy Canterbury, and I'm host today on Archery Talk 101, and we'll see you on the next one.